It all started on a stormy night when a strange text popped up on my phone. I had just finished dinner and was about to relax when the message arrived, a few brief words that made my skin crawl. I later learned the story came from someone who wished to remain unknown, and since that night I haven't been able to forget what happened. I had been really excited for prom. Our school hall was dressed up with bright lights, upbeat music, and a buzz of chatter. I put on my best suit and headed to the dance with high hopes for an awesome evening. At first, everything went as we all planned. Friends laughed, goofy pictures were taken, and slow songs played softly in the background. The whole night felt like a warm celebration of youth and freedom. Then, as the clock neared midnight, things took a strange turn. We were all slow dancing when the light suddenly flickered for a few seconds, as if the power was cutting off. I didn't think too much of it at first, assuming it was just a minor glitch. But as soon as the lights steadied again, a quiet murmur swept through the hall. Whispers spread fast. We soon heard that Jason, one of the most popular students at our school, had vanished without leaving a trace. I still remember the shock of that moment. Jason's empty seat at the long table and the pair of abandoned shoes left in a dark corridor told a silent, eerie story. I recall my friend Seth leaning in and whispering. I saw him talking to someone near that shadowy part of the hall. I wanted to ask more, but the room suddenly felt tight, and even the sound of our footsteps in the corridor seemed heavy with dread. In the days that followed, our school buzzed with rumors and uneasy murmurs. People talked about secret deals and dangerous debts that Jason had once mentioned in passing. Teachers and parents were just as confused as we were, unable to explain the strange clues that started to emerge. An old phone, later found in a janitor's closet, displayed cryptic messages hinting at blackmail. Rumors swirled about a scandal involving trusted staff, and the whole community was on edge. I kept replaying that prom night in my mind, trying to spot any small detail that might explain what really happened to Jason. After prom, the walk home turned into a scene from a nightmare. The empty school corridors felt hauntingly silent as I passed by. I noticed shadows that didn't belong to any group of students, and I could have sworn I heard the soft tap of dress shoes echoing on the cold concrete even after everyone had left. Sometimes the faint smell of cologne, one that wasn't mine, mingled with the damp scent of rain on the pavement, as if someone was still lurking around a corner. One evening, I had to go back to school to grab a jacket I had forgotten. The hallways were dark and almost empty, lit only by a single flickering light above a closed door. As I slowly made my way down the hall, I suddenly heard a soft, rhythmic tapping, like a distant clock ticking. I stopped dead in my tracks and listened, but the sound soon faded into silence. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the noise as nothing more than my imagination running wild. But as I moved forward, that tapping sound returned. Louder this time, more persistent. My heart pounded hard, and I almost ran out of the building before I could glimpse what was causing it. The mystery only deepened as time went on. Teachers dodged questions about that night, and worried parents whispered that some secrets were too dangerous to reveal. Even though there were hints and clues, I never learned exactly what happened to Jason. Every piece of evidence seemed to lead only to more questions, and every answer only made the mystery that haunted our school even darker. Now, even months later, I still think back to that prom night. I still hear that soft tapping and can see the empty seat by the dark corridor in my mind. Late at night, when I'm alone in my room, I sometimes catch a quiet sound or notice a strange smell, and my thoughts drift back to that chilling evening. I often wonder if our fun, happy celebration was just a cover for something far more sinister. The thought that someone among us held secrets so dangerous makes me pause every time I step into the light, always wondering if our secrets might one day come out. I got a tip from someone who wished to remain unnamed. I found this story on an obscure online thread, and even now, it fills me with a deep, lingering dread. It shows that sometimes a night meant for fun can turn truly dark. I was just a high school senior then, and prom was supposed to be the happiest night of our lives. I really looked forward to it. My friends and I spent months planning every detail. We picked our dresses and suits and talked for weeks about how perfect the night would be. Our school had a long history of successful proms, and nothing ever went wrong. Or so we thought. The prom was held at an old country club that seemed warm and welcoming. The gym was decorated with twinkling lights and soft music, and everyone danced and laughed. I remember feeling like nothing could ruin that perfect night. But after the dance, we all went to an after-party at one of our teachers' houses. That's when things started to go off course. At the party, the mood was a mix of excitement and a bit of tiredness. We sat around in the living room, chatting and joking while the night crept on. I recall I even forgot to take out the trash that night when I got home the next morning. The sort of small, silly thing that you overlook. In between laughs, I overheard a couple of conversations that slowly made my skin crawl. A small group of us started talking about some of the school staff. One of my friends, Emily, mentioned something odd. "You know," she said in a hushed tone, "I heard that some of the teachers were taking money from parents, messing with our grades for cash." We all laughed it off at first, thinking it was just gossip. But as the night went on, the whispers grew louder. In a quiet corner of the room, a teacher I had trusted, a man many of us looked up to, stepped away for a cigarette. I noticed a flicker in his eyes that I never remembered before. Later, while I was outside for a bit of fresh air, I saw him talking in hushed tones with another adult. Their voices were low, and I couldn't make out what they were saying, but their body language spoke of secrets and betrayal. I felt something heavy settle in my chest, a feeling I couldn't shake. I went back in and tried to join my friends, but the conversation had shifted. The topic turned to money, power, and how some school officials had been using their positions to exploit families. One student, my friend Jake, admitted he had seen documents on a teacher's desk that clearly showed illegal transactions. I listened, shaking my head, feeling more confused than scared at that moment. But then came a pause. The room fell silent for a beat before erupting into murmurs and scattered accusations. I remember a faint ticking from an old clock in the hallway. It added a kind of steady reminder that time was moving, that nothing here was as stable as it seemed. Amid the whispers, one of the chaperones tried to calm everyone down. His voice was low, almost apologetic, as if he was trying to cover up something. "It's just a rough night, nothing more," he said. But I could sense that his words were meant for his own ears. As the party wore on, things got tense. People started to leave in groups, and there was a noticeable air of dread in the corridors. I stayed a bit longer, trying to clear my head. That's when I caught sight of something disturbing near the back door. I saw a small piece of paper on the ground. It was a note, crudely scribbled. "They take all you trust. Don't forget." I picked it up, my hands shaking, but I didn't say anything. I slipped it into my pocket as I made my way to the exit. Walking out into the cool night air, I felt like I was leaving behind more than just a party. I kept replaying the whispers and the angry looks I had seen throughout the house. I drove home slowly, every sound, the hum of the road, the soft clink of my keys, making me jump. When I finally reached home, I sat in my room for a long time, trying to understand what had happened. I even checked the kitchen to see if the cat had run across the floorboards like she sometimes did, a simple noise that now sounded out of place. Years have passed, but I can still recall that prom night in vivid detail. The joy we once felt turned to confusion, anger, and fear when the truth surfaced. I can't say for sure how much was real and how much was twisted by that charged night. I only know that those secrets, those betrayals, have followed us all our lives. They live in whispered conversations, in silent looks shared by those who remember. And every time I hear a quiet sound or see a stranger's intense gaze, I remember that night. A night when the people we trusted revealed their true, dark selves. I heard this tale from someone who preferred to stay nameless, and even now it sends shivers down my spine. I remember prom night like it was yesterday, a night we all thought would be full of fun and promise, but which instead turned into a battle of secrets and shattered trust. I was a quiet kid at a high school known for its sterling reputation. Most people saw me as reserved, almost invisible, and I was no stranger to being picked on. That night, however, everything changed. Our annual prom was the highlight of our teenage years, a bright, glittering escape from the everyday grind. The gym was decorated with soft lights and paper stars, and there was laughter and music everywhere. I thought nothing of it, feeling both excitement and a hint of nervousness that I couldn't explain. After dancing and chatting with friends, we all headed to the after-party at a teacher's house on the edge of town. It was meant to be the perfect end to an unforgettable night. I remember sitting on a worn-out couch with my classmates, listening to the low murmur of conversations and the clink of glasses. The air was sticky, and I even forgot to take out the trash later that night, a small detail that now seems oddly out of place. While we all laughed and joked, I noticed whispers that turned into murmurs. A group of students in the corner started talking in low voices, their eyes darting around the room. One of my longtime friends, Sarah, leaned in close and said, "I heard that someone has proof of all the wrongs that happened at our school." Her tone was cautious, and I could tell she was afraid of being overheard. I shrugged it off at first, thinking it was just another bit of gossip. But then, during a lull in the party, the music almost stopped, and a quiet buzz ran through the room. A reserved student, Lisa, who had always suffered in silence from endless bullying, stood up. With trembling hands and a look that mixed anger and fear, she announced that she had something to show everyone. A flash drive. "I have proof," she whispered, her voice shaking as she held it up for all to see. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. There was an uncomfortable silence as the room filled with murmurs. I remember hearing the low ticking of the old clock in the hallway, its sound oddly loud against the background of hushed voices. For a few moments, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Lisa said nothing more, but the implications were heavy. The flash drive contained videos and documents that exposed financial abuse by a trusted teacher, and damning evidence that some of our popular students had used their power to exploit others. Her revelation was like a spark in dry grass. Suddenly, smiles turned into fearful glances, and whispered conversations turned into angry accusations. Things spiraled fast after that. The party broke into chaos. People shouted, and several students began hurling bitter insults. I could see tears in some eyes and a look of shock on others, as if they were witnessing a betrayal from someone they had trusted. I remember thinking, this isn't what prom should be, but I couldn't stop the rising tension or the sound of shuffling feet as everyone tried to leave. Outside in the cool night air, I stood apart from the crowd. I could still hear fragments of harsh words and the distant hum of sirens approaching. I walked slowly to my car, trying to process everything. Every sound that night, the soft scrape of shoes on pavement, a car door closing in the distance, even the whisper of wind, seemed to etch the memory deeper into my mind. In the weeks that followed, the scandal rocked our school. Administrators scrambled to control the situation, and public meetings turned into verbal battlegrounds. Many of us felt raw wounds from that night, a deep betrayal by the very people we trusted. Even now, when I walk past empty corridors or hear a quiet laugh, I catch myself wondering if it might lead back to that dark night when our innocence was stolen piece by piece. I still talk about that prom with some of my old classmates, and we share a silent understanding, a heaviness that words can't shake off. No one fully explains what happened that night, and perhaps some things are better left unsaid. All I know is that in one single evening, a night meant for joy turned into a lasting nightmare of fear, anger, and disbelief.